All right, guys, I'm going to demonstrate how to throw a bottle on the potter's wheel. As promised, I don't let you guys give up, and I'm not going to give up either. And I'm actually fairly proud because this morning it took me 20 minutes, and you'll see it almost fell apart twice, but I didn't give up. So as always, we're beginning with centering our clay. And then we're opening, making sure we stay in the center and we don't knock it off center. Some of you guys have been making your bottoms really, really thin. So you may want to focus on making them a little thicker. Even if they're too thick, we can trim that out. I know we've ended up with a lot of flower pots or flower bowls. It's important when throwing a bottle, and this is probably where I struggle the most, to make sure that you pull up as straight as possible to get a cylinder. I have a habit of kind of throwing and pulling out at the same time to kind of go for my base shape. So it's really important that you try really hard to keep it perfectly straight up and down because it'll be easier to collar when we get to that, which you're going to understand what that means in just a couple minutes. Remember, we always pull from the very bottom and we don't stop pulling until we get to the top. We want to keep our piece wet enough that our hands glide over, but we do not want a puddle of water inside of our piece. Some of you guys are still struggling with throwing too wet. You also want to make sure that your walls are nice and thin, because when you do begin to compress for the collaring, you're going to see that your walls actually kind of thicken up a little bit. And as Tyler picked up my bottle today and informed me it weighed a ton, yes, it does. You guys don't want a bottle like I threw in college. As I taught you guys, we're going to trim off that excess so that we have a finished bottom to our bottle. Then we're going to go back in and pull that up and into the bottle. Actually fairly impressed that I was able to keep a cylinder shape. Guys, when I tell you I struggle with bottles, I struggle like nobody's business. But as I told you guys, I have not allowed any of you guys to quit. I'm extremely proud of every single one of you guys because not one of you has quit. And that is what made me know that I had to demo and that I couldn't get out of it by letting my threes do it for me, which is usually what I have them do. I'm going to figure out where I want my bottle to actually start coming out, and I'm going to very gently push on the inside. Some of you guys have been struggling with the shaping aspect. At this point, we don't want our hands to be even. We actually want our hand below on the inside and our hand just above on the outside. And you can see that it's beginning to kind of give it a round shape to the bottom of the bottle. What I experimented with for this bottle is my rib, both the plastic rib that you guys all have and then the metal ribs, which are on the table in the front of the classroom. I found that continuing to compress that water back into the clay, and you'll see when I pretty much lose my bottle that that's what saves it from completely collapsing. But I'm kind of using that to kind of push the water back in and at the same time kind of gently push the piece back in so that I can begin collaring. Collaring you are going to see in just a minute. Got to give it a nice deep area in which it's going to start coming to. This is what collaring is. The reason why it's so important that you guys keep your cylinders straight and don't come out like I have a habit to do, and I'm actually proud because I didn't do it, because you want your fingers to actually be able to touch. And you can't see my thumbs on the other side, but my thumbs are touching because that's how you know that you're collaring evenly. And if you don't collar evenly, what's going to happen is you're going to knock it off center if your hands aren't at the same length. So when you can touch your fingers together I used my middle fingers because your middle fingers are your longest fingers, but that's what you want to be able to touch, so you know both your left hand and your right hand are on the exact same spot when you begin collaring. Collaring is when we compress this to start making this smaller. You also need to make sure that you keep plenty of water on your piece, which is going to cause some problems in the fact that we also don't want too much water because our piece will fall apart, which you will see mine almost does on 2 occasions, and I do save it with the rib. So I suggest you guys get a metal rib from the table. Let's watch my awesome demo. I'm so proud. Now you can see that my thumbs were touching together. I go back and get my hands wet again. Your hands have to be pretty wet for this to actually work, and you can begin to see that it slowly starts to come in thinner and thinner. Bottles are about patience, which maybe that's also why I don't struggle with them, or why I do struggle with them, because I lack patience. Although I do have to say, my 2 children have taught me lots of patience, so maybe that's why I succeeded. Again, back in with the rib, and you can see it literally pulling the water off. You can see the ring of water that I've got going on here, and that's going to be what causes my piece to ultimately kind of start flopping in the middle, which you'll see shortly. But you can see I'm actually using the rib to also continue the collaring. This is about the tedious thing you'll ever do on the wheel. If you force it to go too fast, you will be sorry. You will knock it off center, which is the story of the life of my bottles. If you don't believe me, pick up some of my demos. In order for it to be considered a bottle, it needs to have at least a 2-inch neck, which you can see mine is going to have when I'm finished. But we don't just want it to have a lip that comes in. We want it to have an actual neck, kind of like a pitcher or a one of those vases that holds just one rose. I forget what they're called. You can use the wooden rib. I do have a couple of wooden ribs that I can get out, but I do have one in my bucket, and my bucket's nice and clean. Thank you, Ty. We will be needing all 12.5 minutes left of this video because that is how long it's going to take me to get this to collar all the way in and manage to save it. But you can start to kind of see that it's beginning to come in. You can see that it's a little wrinkly on the inside, okay? And that too means that there's too much water. You'll see eventually I get a sponge that I actually drop in my piece.
I've heard this is like one of the best pizza spots in town.
Yes, it is.
I'll do a slice of pepperoni, slice of vegetarian.
You got it.
Again, back with the blue rib.
3 days. What's that mean? Well, wait, you accept credit cards. That money's not going to hit your account for 3 days anyway.
I need my money quicker.
At Chase, we hear you. With Express Funding, card payments are in your Chase account the next business day. Go to chase.com/expressfunding. Chase for business.
I actually found the flat side of the rib to be more helpful. You can see I definitely have a ridge going on here, which is showing that my bottle is beginning to have a neck. Looks like we're going to have to do this in 2 videos, guys. And this is a great point to stop because I just begin to lose this part. So please watch the second video too. Thanks, guys.